In the mid-1990s, George Price was the director of communications at D.R.E Records.
The atmosphere was a bit hectic, you know, off and on. There were all kinds of things going on, as there are in, I think, any record company in this day and time, and especially in any sort of hip-hop focused company. You know, people trying to get in with their music, just a flurry of all kinds of things going on. There were things that I understand in the nearly 4 years that I was there that went on behind closed doors that I know absolutely nothing about.
Dr. Dre's time at Death Row, from what I've seen and what I know about Dre, you know, it was like the big head syndrome. When Dre got with Death Row, it was like, okay, I'm with the uncut crew right now. These dudes are uncut. They from the street. They gonna keep it gangster. Ain't nobody gonna fuck with them. And I can be hard. You know, when I was with Eazy, you know, I talked the gangster shit, but it wasn't really like that. But now, they fuck with me. They fucking with Suge. They fucking with the Pyrus. They fucking with the Bloods. They, you know, it's a family thing now, and we're big. So Dre, I mean, he got kind of cocky, started smelling himself, and got out of line. I mean, he slapped one of my friend's wives, and he got dealt with for that. You know, that's a whole nother story.
I was Dr. Dre's bodyguard for probably 3 or 4 months in 1994. And he was a very, very respectful guy. He was reserved, he was quiet. And all he wanted to do was make music. And one of the most interesting things that happened while I was his bodyguard is we were eating in a restaurant, and a group of yuppies came in, and they had been drinking. So there was one female, she was very attractive, but she was very, very drunk. And she walked over to Dr. Dre, I should say, she stumbled over to him, and she rubbed the top of his head like he was a pet. And that ticked Dr. Dre off something terrible. He was pissed, he was livid. You know, he told her, you know, don't put her hands on him like he's some fucking boy. And I remember that because, you know, that was the only time that I ever saw an outburst from him, you know.
Dre wisely decided to leave D.R.E Records, as shortly afterwards both Biggie and Tupac were murdered due to the escalating East-West rivalry.
He didn't want to do the gangster stuff no more. It's not that he didn't want to do the gangster stuff no more, he just didn't want to do the things that D.R.E was doing. And that's not just gangster, that's just straight militant. Like, it was just like it was an atmosphere that Dre avoided as a child, and now as a man, he's going through it, and I don't think he want to do that. I don't think you want to risk 18 years in the ghetto, finally be rich as hell, and then work in the ghetto.
Initially, it was all gravy. It was all good for Dre. Initially, when it first started off, and I don't know what happened after that. I mean, I guess he grew. I guess he grew musically, mentally, and, you know, and it was just, I guess he was seeing so much death and mayhem around him, and I guess he got spooked and was like, man, you know, I don't want to be the next one to die or get beat down or whatever, but initially it was all good. It was gangster, I'm hard, I'm Dre, and fuck a bitch, I'm tough, and then he switched reels, he switched up, you know, he drank some bleach and he changed.
And I've read that there were differences, but I can't pinpoint what those differences were. I do know that Dre, you know, after several times, I never saw him at the office again. I would have to go to wherever he was to do my job when it concerned him, you know, for interviews and so on. So I think because he was a creative person, maybe he was distancing himself from that side of it, so that he could totally, you know, concentrate on his creativity.
Dre forged ahead on plans to develop his own new record company. With the backing from the major record label Interscope, Dre formed Aftermath Records. Dre's first release was Dr. Dre Presents The Aftermath in 1997. The album was a compilation of singles by unknown artists. It was not as hardcore as his fans were accustomed to, but the album did well commercially, although paling in comparison to the producer's past successes. The first release was the single Been There, Done That, and some critics said that the great producer had lost his edge.
The first thing I heard, like I said, I was incarcerated in federal prison, and we're watching MTV, BET, and we see this song called Been There, Done That. And to me, that was like a total fucking disrespect, slap in the face for the West Coast. He shitted on everybody, like, I've been there, I've done that, you know, and now I'm this and I'm that. What the fuck? That's what started you. You know, now you gonna shit on everybody?
The one record that really blew me right that Dre made was that one he was doing the classical. I mean, he was dancing, he was doing what you call that? The ballroom dancing, okay? I'm like, damn, but it was a cold cut.
But we seen that inside and we looking like, what the fuck he talking about? He's doing the waltz, you know, he's doing that German dance, whatever, that nobody in the hood do that shit. And we're like, what is he doing? And it didn't work for him. It flopped. You know, it went wood in the hood. Nobody was feeling that.
Dr. Dre returned back to form when he released the album Chronic 2001. On this album, Dre managed to strike a balance that reflected his personal growth, while still giving fans ample servings of hardcore hip-hop.
When Dr. Dre's Chronic 2001 first came out, and he came out with that video, Still Dre Day, we was like, okay, now that's the Dr. Dre we know, from N.W.A, from D.R.E, from Snoop Dogg, and when he came with that, it was like, okay, he back home with the low riders, and it was hot. Nobody out west was feeling. He didn't have that love out here no more. So when he came back with the Chronic, you know, the Chronic 2 album, the love was back there again.
Richard Siegel Huridja is an accomplished sound engineer and has worked with Dr. Dre for many years, the most recent collaboration being on Chronic 2001. Their work together has brought a lasting friendship.
I think 2001 was more of a mature record for Dre, more of a growing record. The subject matter was totally different. It was more on a, you know, an older, more experienced level rather than, you know, it got away more so from the bitches and hoes and slapping this and doing this. It was more of an adult record. And more musically, it was just so incredible. I mean, I know people that just buy the instrumental record to just hear the music, just to hear the transitions and the talent of all the musicians on there that just make the record just so incredible.
Where most hardcore rap affects a stony-faced emotional detachment, Chronic 2001 is at its strongest when Dre shows himself to be vulnerable. This is most notably so on The Message, a ballad on which Dre mourns the death of his younger brother.
I think he didn't want the message to really go on the record because it showed a vulnerable side, a softer side of Dre that he really didn't want to put out there, being that, you know, he's Dr. Dre, you know. When you think of West Coast music, you think of Dr. Dre first, you know, and the DJ Quicks and the Snoops and everybody. But Dre as a producer, artist, you know, you think of this hard persona, you know, aggressive, you know. And so I think the message showed a softer side of him that he really didn't want to put out there or, you know, showcase just yet.